And so people are uncomfortable. And they avoid meeting him. But he's actually okay with that because he doesn't feel much like celebrating. His whole future that he thought he had just left him. And he has no expectation that he's ever going to see his son again. He has no expectation that this dream life that he had planned for his whole family and all the children that were yet to be was now completely different because of this choice. He wished he could see that son again. And he knew that the best way for that boy to come home would be to come home as this success, 10 times richer than his family had ever been, and he would come home and he would throw this huge feast for the whole town, and everybody would come, and he would give gifts to everybody, and he would show them that he valued them and that he wanted to be in relationship with them. And this journey that he took, it was just a hiatus. It was just so that he would have more to bring to the whole group of people. And they would welcome him back and be glad he was back. That, of course, was the papa's dream. Underneath it all was just the hope that he'd see his boy again, at least once. Know he was okay. Know he was doing all right. But days go by, and weeks, and he doesn't hear anything. Not one thing. We know that the boy goes out. He knew that the boy went out. He knew he went out with enough money that he should have been okay, but he hears nothing. Nothing at all. And he waits. Every day he finds his eyes drawn to the road that lead up to the family land, waiting to see a figure in the distance that he recognizes. Every day, day in and day out, he waits and waits. And in the meantime, of course, you know the story. The son has gone through all the money, and he's broke, and he's desperate. And he's decided to return home not because he misses his papa, not because he misses his mama's cooking, not for any of those reasons. He's just plain hungry. And he knows if he goes back there, there's food available, and he'll have a roof over his head, and even his father's servants are treated better than the way he's being treated right now. So he says to himself, I'll go back to my papa, and I'll say, I know I did wrong, but I'd like to at least work for you and be a servant. Be one of your farm hands. And then I'll get food in my tummy and a bed to sleep on, and it'll all be good. All he was looking for to find out of life was to have his personal needs met. He'd already gone through the wild living time, and now he just wanted to know for sure that there'd be another meal on the table and there'd be a roof over his head. He was still just thinking about his own stuff. He didn't care about the damage he'd done to his family, and he didn't care about the damage he did to the community. So he rehearsed his little speech. Okay, I've got it worked out. I know that I need to throw in that I'm sorry. And I need to throw in that I'm not just sorry for what I did to you, Dad. I'm sorry for what I did to God as well. And if I could just find a way to throw in something in there that will let me in the door and sit at the table and get some food in my belly, then it'll all be good. How could he not have known how deeply he was loved? He honestly thought he had to negotiate a relationship with his father, and he'd grown up knowing this man. He'd seen what this man was willing to do for him when he asked for something, to be the laughingstock of a community just for him. But he still thought he had to have some kind of hook, some kind of sales job to get his dad to do what he wanted his dad to do. He knew that he had to get in this special relationship of the protection of his father. Because if he didn't, he was facing something that he didn't want to face. And he really didn't like living up to those responsibilities or repercussions of his actions. Because the Talmud had prescribed a certain ritual for Jewish boys who squandered all the family money away to Gentiles. There was a very special ritual that the community was obligated to do to separate themselves from this completely unacceptable behavior, to make it clear to all the surrounding other families and communities that this is not who we are. We do not behave this way. So they had a ritual, and they would take this stone pottery clay urn, and they would fill it with burnt nuts and corn. Can you smell it? That smell of burnt corn and burnt nuts. It makes my nose wrinkle. And they would fill this clay urn with these acrid offerings. And then they, as a village, would go to the boy, the man, whoever had done this thing, and take this clay urn and smash it at his feet so that all around him is the scattered burnt nuts and corn. And it was an act to show that he was now completely orphaned from this body. He had no longer a tie to his family of birth, and he had no longer a tie to the community at all. He was beyond shunned. He was dead. Now the boy knew this was facing him. And so he has to find a way to get in there, because if he's already been accepted by the Father as a servant, well, then he's just a working boy and he doesn't have to go through this ritual, which would be devastating. He thinks it's still all about him. And he's got to find a way to avoid what's coming to him. But the Papa watches every day. And one day, he sees right on the horizon, up against the sun, a figure coming. And it only takes a second, just a few steps, and he knows who it is. He knows his son's walk. He knows the way he holds his body, and he takes off. This landowner, this boss, this patriarch takes off running full tilt right down the road, right up to his father. His robes are flashing. His little white ankles are being revealed to all who see. Dust is just billowing up around him. There is nothing decorous about his movement at all. Nothing stately. It is the all-out abandoned run of someone who sees someone they love and long to be with. And he catches up with his son, and he doesn't stand there and say, "So, what do you have to say for yourself?" He throws his arms around him, and even before the boy can begin to say his whole rehearsed speech, he is being held tight up against his father and hugged. "Oh, I am so glad you are home." And then the Papa starts calling out to the servants saying, "Go grab the best robe, that one that's up in my room. Grab that, grab the family ring. Let's clean him up. Let's put shoes on his feet, for he is not a servant. He is my son, and he is home." And they dress him, and they put the ring on his finger and shoes on his feet, and he has nothing to say.